Thanks, Jim. Yeah, let me talk about it's actually a sort of a constellation of programs, 5 pilots that we're doing. We feel this is very important because it really is focused on what we like to call the tip of the spear, where we're enabling the mission. In this case, these are business applications that are across our components at various stages of their life cycle. And we are taking all of these applications and all these solutions and piloting a concept where we're decomposing them, reconstructing them, shrinking how we deliver them, and making sure that we get functionality out to the mission operator. What do I mean by that? This is everything from the time to market in respect to alternatives of analysis. We need to understand what it is we're trying to do as far as what the business need is.
So you're trying to shrink every aspect of the life cycle.
Every aspect of the acquisition life cycle. So not just the procurement, right? We'll talk about that in a minute, and the creativity there. But really, what is it what we're trying to do? Are we trying to build something? Are we trying to buy something? Are we trying to cross-service with something? It used to take us up to a year to do that alternative analysis. We've shrunk that down to weeks and months, which has also shrunk down the cost of that. From there, we decide if this is a purpose-built system, which we would go in sort of an agile mode, or if it's a COT system, which we've done in some cases, or if we're going to cross-service with a line of business or an agency that's already doing this.
Now, does your Flash program I'm reading about, does that fit into this model, or is that something different?
It does. So when we get into a situation where it's purpose-built, which we tend to find ourselves doing that as often as probably at least 50% of the solutions, we're using an agile methodology to do that. When we started piloting these concepts, we recognized that we needed more capacity, more service in that area. So we reached over to Shariah's shop and said, hey, listen, we have some capability now. We need more of that. Let's talk about maybe a creative way to go after that, do that in a short amount of time, get that capacity available so that when we decide we need to deliver a purpose-built business system, which again is at least 50% of our environment at this point, probably more, we need to do that very quickly, get access to those services very quickly. So I'll throw it over to Shariah because we went through a very creative way about how to actually acquire the agile services that we then use to build these business purpose.
What are some of the challenges you saw with this methodology?
Well, let me just cap onto a couple things there. So finish out that story. So very unconventional way of doing that, a mixture of traditional and non-traditional vendors that we brought in on board into that environment. I'm real proud of the fact that we recognized early on as we were doing those alternative of analysis, again, in a very short amount of time, that we are going to do purpose-built. We don't have the capacity. Rather than sort of say, all right, we're just going to kind of go through the traditional method because that's what we know. We said, no, we need this capability. 120 days later, very unconventional way of doing things, very innovative. We'll have that capability on board. Did the same thing with a cloud vendor because we knew we needed that capability as well. And then we're off and running. And so the intent there is to design purpose-built, very specific systems to meet those business needs. You know, there's only one TSA in the world. Right? There's only one Citizen and Immigration Services in the world. They need very specific systems to meet their specific needs. Using this type of capability and these methodologies, you can deliver minimal viable products, get early feedback, and continue to do that. That's a tectonic shift in the way we used to deliver software services. The challenges there is, of course, that's a lot of moving parts, right? And so we always have to balance this, and Shariah and I have had several discussions with our leadership team about, you know, how far do we push that to the point where you get what I call sort of anaerobic. You know, you can almost do too much activity where you just it's not being absorbed, right?
You got to stay focused.
Right, and there's a lot of demands, as you can imagine, on just like any agency has a lot of demands on them to deliver these types of capabilities to meet the mission needs. And, you know, you have folks that, you know, under a lot of pressure might want to slip back to kind of what they know, even though the gains are really in these areas that, yes, you have to experiment, yes, you have to push the envelope, yes, we are getting into the unknown. That's where the leadership comes in. We talk about, you know, we've got to take on some risk to lower our risk, right? And we've got to reward that. We know that these folks are going to make some mistakes. We've got to be able to give them the air cover there and be able to adjust accordingly. And we're not going to get it all clean and straight down the middle every time we do it. We're not following the policies. We went out and talked to our oversight folks, GAO, OMB, the Hill, and we told them, hey, listen, if you come in here and you look at how our policies are written about how we deliver solutions, and you look at what we're doing over here, they are not going to be the same, right? Because we're learning how to do this, but we're not going to go write a policy and then hope we get it right. We're going to learn from these pilots, and then we're going to write the policy.
Excellent.
So, you know, you're really getting into some gray area. Those challenges are just, you know, working with the community and making sure that they can absorb it, they're comfortable with the level of risk that we're taking, and that we, you know, do the proper oversight as we learn how to do this well and responsibly.
Well, lesson learned you'd like to throw out there real quick?
Yeah, I would say that while we understood that we were going to get in a situation where, as we started to experience challenges maybe with some other projects that weren't part of the pilots, we told ourselves we needed to stabilize those, but not make them pilot number 6, 7, and 8, because at some point you just have to stay focused, right? Because there is some cultural barriers and just some you know, just some communication barriers and things that you have to work through, and that takes energy, that takes time on the leadership. And so a lesson learned there is to stay diligent about that and not, you know, broaden yourself out and stay focused on, you know, achieving what you set out to achieve. And while we want to remain flexible, we have to stay focused as well so that we can, you know, get to the end game.